But he wants to put something else up there that's more.
So you can do the sound music this.
Oh yeah.
Sing it live.
It's a waterfall.
Yeah. I see. I just tried to sing.
All right, so Jessica's not on this yet. Let me find a way to get her on here. Okay, so we're on live. Aaron, you're here. This is great. Why don't you come up over this way, Aaron?
There's room over here.
Now, it's right over here, Aaron, where I'm sitting. Just come here, and I'll sit over on this chair.
Are you sure?
Yeah. This thing's following you, see? Yeah. Yeah. So right here is good. Okay. How are you guys? I know it's weird to see it do its thing. See it follow you around. Yeah.
You approved me. Like you have to, but yeah.
Really yours? Maria, I can't add you as a friend on Facebook.
Coworker, sister-in-law.
There's not much to know.
Okay.
That's my picture. That is literally all I have on Facebook is my name.
Oh, it says somebody's watching. I wonder if Jessica's. Can you ask her on Facebook if Jessica's watching? Because I've got. It says one person's watching. It must be her.
Or some random person.
Yeah, it can be a random person. Oh, this was a big lag because I'm using a third-party encoder. But once YouTube announced they're going to build in the encoder, and it should be almost in. And, Carissa, you worked with her before, and she's just really good with these systems.
Right.
And marrying them up with the First Nation systems, like almost no one can do what she does.
Right.
Even Jean Becker's not quite as good as Melissa as making the ins and outs works. And so Melissa was telling you, it has to do with, I could turn on the mic. That would help. I wonder why that wasn't working. Is she communicating with you yet?
No,
Okay, I asked her to, but we'll see what she does.
I'll just leave my Facebook open.
So she basically was telling you that try to bring in a resource person.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're talking about is that they want their teachings to be embodied
Mm-hmm.
by a First Nations person. That it's not time yet to have it embodied by someone else. Because they've tried that for years and it's always taken from them, and that it always is ripped from its context.
So,
And so that's the concern.
and I guess my concern is that, like, are there enough people that can, in a sense, that, how do you answer that for every music teacher? Like, how do they bring that?
The answer Charlotte gave you was how do you create alliances, right? And go get this thing we have on campus, and we've had this program here at WLU about what's it like to become a good ally of First Nations, because it's gonna take a number of years to get it to work smoothly, because it doesn't work smoothly, as you could tell,
Yeah.
right?
I guess, like, because, like I said, there are so many music teachers, there has to be some way that you can respect that and invite people in to
Maybe it's a
to teach
process
it.
though.
That's what she's saying, it's a process.
But I guess what I'm saying is like, there are not enough people to come in
Yet.
for all the music teachers, so how do you find that balance in between? So, because we're
Yeah.
told on one hand, we need to acknowledge, and
As part of the curriculum.
as part of the curriculum.
So
and
you teach what it is to be a good ally. You teach what like,
But that's not.
you guys can't become First Nation songholders. Now, you're not
No.
ready. You don't have the depth. There's all kinds of reasons why you can't. The
But
first
there are-
time I was allowed to sing in ceremony was like an hour ago. Well, that's my first time, and I've been doing this for like 20 years, right, with First Nation people. That was the first, I just did it in chapel. And Dorinda put her hand on me and said, "You're singing." And I said, "What are we singing?" She goes, "Way Away." I said, "Okay, I know that one." And so, but I'm still not allowed to keep a drum, right? So I think that'll happen soon, but it's a long alliance process, but I'm still able to teach, like my high school kids I taught in First Nation singing. I didn't give them any song, but I'd either bring a person to them or I teach them about allyship.
But I guess what I'm thinking from an ORF perspective, there are ways that you can, like, you don't necessarily need the songs. You can bring in discussions, and ORF is very creative based, so like using stories that.
Yeah, that's what you do. But rather than trying to recreate their culture.
Yeah, and that's
which-
not what I'm saying, it's
'cause you're
finding,
creating an
there's gotta
exoticism.
be a balance in between, because you can't, like, if we're told we have to do that, and yet we have to wait for somebody to come in and do it, which is great, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but I'm just saying there's just not enough people when you think about all the music teachers that there are.
Yeah,
So-
but not everybody wants it. I mean, that's been the real problem, right? Is that you went after it, but a lot of those resource people sit there and don't even get a call. And I have had rooms full of Toronto School District people, teachers, who have come to us, and they're good teachers. And I'll say, "How many of you have been through circle teaching?" And none. But years they've been in that district with resource people and with stuff available every few months for faculty and development days. It just, we're entering a new time. Either teachers didn't see it as important because it's more important to do Mozart or something, I don't know. But I know that it has not been an easy match, and that we're on the edge of doing it. It's kind of exciting. And what happens to you guys is we have a bunch of your predecessors who are so eager, they want to jump right in and go do, can I go teach, songwriting to First Nations kids somewhere? They're not ready. They have no other training except what you guys just got. And so we have to so we're in process okay, calm down. And and then sometimes it is a mentorship. Some people have been taken under other people's wings. Lucas is out on the East Coast now working with an elder, but not in music. she's teaching them how to weave baskets. So
Did
it's
you
a
see the
long,
OAC?
it's a long process.
Yeah, I read it, I commented on it.
Yeah. We're on.
Yeah, we're on. Hi, Jess.
Hi, Jess.
So we have this thing, Jess.
Well, I think we're on. She just
might be able-
messaged me.
Well, and let's see if we can get this thing to work for her. And if not, we'll just stand it up the old-fashioned way. It keeps turning itself off, which I just don't understand. It could be just out of power, but I charged. Disactivity. So tell her to knock twice. No, just tell her if she can hear it. That'd be great. Let us know. Can you hear it? Yeah, let us know. Otherwise, we'll find a way to get you to hear it. And you can pass it around. You can see everybody. Yeah. Oh, let's do it. Wave hi to Jessica, guys. Hi, Jessica. Hi, yay. And now should I go around this way so it doesn't break?
Yeah, I mean.
Yay. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Jess.
Okay, Lindsay broke it last time, Jess.
Hi,
so,
that's what I
there you
do.
go. Yeah. I don't know if it'll turn all the way around, but maybe. Yes. Yes. Hi, Alex. Hi, Jen.
I am waving, but my hands.
Can you see you? Can you see you? That's what Jessica's seeing. Okay. And Simon, did you see you?
She's not on live feed.
She's not on live feed yet? Okay. Tell her that we were, oh, look at it. And it freaked out again. Oh, that's right. It won't read it 2 feet away. There it goes. Okay. All right. So we need to get her on the live feed.
Oh, I guess I have to send that link, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the link, or I can send it. I've got it right here. I mean, there's us on the live feed, but. It's on YouTube basically. She can get on YouTube and see it. It says she's on, but I don't know. Okay, let me address Jennifer's stuff, and then then I can turn you guys loose to talk as you want as we present. But that's one of the big issues is that you can't always jump right into a culture, and just because we're expert teachers, like Dan's a certified teacher or Alex is working, has all kinds of certifications. We can't always do it because
Yeah, it was very frustrating, and yeah.
wow. Can we get more feedback on that? Did anyone else feel excluded?
I didn't feel excluded necessarily, but I can relate to what you were talking about. When I was in teachers college, we had a course called Arts in Urban Schools, and it dealt with essentially many of the same concepts that we're unpacking in this class. And pretty much after every single class, I would come away being like, I guess I'm a horrible person. I guess I'm racist. I guess I'm like I have all these things, and like you just feel really, really shit about
Yeah.
yourself afterwards. And I don't think that you need to take that as like as person. I don't know how to say it. Not like don't take it personally, but just it's sort of that's just what it is.
Acknowledging
You
it.
just
Okay.
acknowledge that it's a thing that
Yeah.
happens,
Well,
and then
let's
you
try to
just
process it, like right here for 2 minutes or 3
Yeah.
minutes. Let's try to do it as a class, because we haven't done anything like that, right? Good sense.
I think you have to just sit in that uncomfortableness for a little bit and stew around in it and be like, yep, these are the feelings that are out there, and then you just sort of have to
But
yeah,
you're,
dwell in it for a bit.
but the perspective you're taking is you as an individual. That's not the perspective they're taking. Do you see the difference?
Right, that's what I'm saying, that these perspectives exist, and I think that you just have to acknowledge that they exist.
And respect it too.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
think
Well, I
respect
think
is a
you're
big
doing liberal
thing.
society stuff, and that's good. That's good, but I think we can go further.
I did my social work practicum in the Jane Finch neighborhood,
Oh,
working
wow.
on community development, and it was a lot of like new concepts that I hadn't really considered before because I wanted to be a social worker and save the world, and learned a lot of
On compassion
Mhm.
with you,
Yeah.
because what she.
Here's what I know from my perspective, is that you're on a journey, and it's a good question, and it's a good frustration that you're in, because
Yeah.
it's gonna lead you down a road
Yeah, yeah.
that teaches you about you.
Yeah.
And my takeaway from the whole thing, and I found myself saying this in cello choir and ensemble and with about 3 different conversations, and I didn't even know that I knew it, but I guess that's direct transmission. But what I got from that is also something that was in Bruce Chapman's songlines, that you have a role in the storyline of history. So your role is to connect your own personal ancestors and the ancestors of your people with the ones that are coming ahead. And so you're not just laterally connecting, you're connecting this way too.
Yeah.
So you are carrying, in fact, even though you personally wouldn't do it, you're carrying
Yeah.
the misconceptions and the abuse of all the and me too. Like I'm Scottish, and
That's
we
kind of,
just
yeah,
like
that's kind of what I was getting at
Yeah.
too. It's just, and it's understanding this, that there is this, awful isn't the word, I don't know if there is a word to describe how
Oof,
terrible
yeah.
some histories are, and the way we have treated people in the past, and I think that what it is just trying to be that's what I do. I just try to be respectful and understand that there's that history. That's all I guess I can say. And I can't even begin to know, even in my most frustrated moments, I can't even begin to know what that was like.
Yeah.
I think we're
That's my
missing,
honest
but we're
answer.
missing some of the points, that they're
again-
going back 7 generations.
Yeah.
So go back 7 generations yourself
and
in your family.
compassion
if it's like a popular song, like, because, like, you know, from the First Nations awards, if it's from one of the, like, the popular songs, like a rap
Right.
song or something like that,
Yeah,
like, should, like, to me, or like that, I was told that that would be okay. Like sacred songs and circle songs, we wouldn't touch. But if it's in a, like a popular radio song,
sure.
then that would be okay. Although
Yeah.
on the video that Kira talked
Jen, you
about.
also have to think about what you're trying to teach. Are you just trying to teach what the curriculum wants you to teach, or what are you personally trying to teach? Because that's what's gonna speak to whichever consultant you talk to, or whichever elder. And, because they really wanna know what you're about, right?
Right.
Yeah, so when you're asking, what can I use, the first answer is gonna be nothing. Yeah, because you're not gonna use anything.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if they get to know you,
Mhm.
and like Alex, same thing, they get to know you, what you're about, like you're concerned about women's stuff, they are too. Like
exactly.
Jean Becker, and they'll say, you know what, Alex, do this, and they'll guide you right to what you need. But if it's one more person knocking on their door, you know, and even the consultants, that's their job, you know?
Right,
We're
yeah.
supposed to knock on your door.
Right.
But it doesn't always match up because the perspectives don't always match. And that's what this class is about. Your perspective that comes from this locating of yourself, right? Who you are, what I am a teacher.
Mhm.
When you get through this class, ideally you should be able to shift that perspective somehow. Like, because sometimes we've been with them so long, or our ego is so strong, or we've created a persona that is so powerful. And why do we create personas, right? Usually it's because we're interfaced with the world, we're scared of something. We're scared of getting beat up or something. So we create a funny persona. Funny Chinese guy, right? Right, Simon? Like it helps to have a good sense of humor, right? Because I was getting thrown in trash cans when I was in grade 9. And that stopped it.
I've never experienced
Yeah.
any
Discrimination? Okay. So,
well, not in my childhood, but when I was older, I actually got I was supplying at a school,
Uh-huh.
and a kid asked me if I knew karate, and I was like, well, unfortunately, first off, that's Japanese. I'm not. I'm Chinese. I was like, and you need to be careful with what you say because it could be viewed as racist. That kid went crying to the principal, and I got in trouble. The principal told me that I wasn't using student-friendly language, and that I should have.
Whoa.
Yeah,
So
and
you
that
got a good
I was
lesson,
in the,
didn't you?
and that I was in the wrong, and I was like, what?
No, that kind of thing happens all the time.
And it does, and it threw me off. And at that time, because of my personality, I'm like, oh, okay, well, just like smooth it
I must be
over.
wrong.
Like
it's not working. It needs to be-
like I'm a supply teacher, right? I don't have many protections, so I was like, I'm just not gonna step on any toes. But I thought about it after, and I was like, honestly, of like, well, the student said, you know, that all he did was watch his only interaction with Chinese people or Asian people was in movies, and in action movies, all they did was they knew all of this stuff automatically.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so you're excusing the student's behavior and saying that it's okay to for saying that you're doing something that's could be viewed as racist. Like apparently a great if I said it could be viewed as racist and I don't take offense to that, but you need to be careful, puts me in the bad light.
Well, no, it's not bad light, good light. It's just perspective, right?
But the principal said I was in the wrong for saying that.
Yeah, from his perspective, you're wrong. From a perspective that's favoring, let's say, a white kid, let's be really blatant. Yeah, you're wrong, and you always will be wrong. Do you get it? Like,
Yeah.
And what 30 years ago it was against the law for you to say anything. In North America, they might not press on that. Well, 1955 is when they looked at it, so that's up 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, from a certain perspective, we're and that's true of everything. When you shift perspectives around, life get all flipped on their heads. So when you try to take Melissa's and Charlotte's perspective, given their history, then it's easy to understand.
Oh, I totally.
You really understand.
That part I don't want to
Yeah, we
say
all get it.
because,
Yeah, we all get it, but we want to bridge it, right?
But I guess when like the second time when the consultant said I couldn't do anything, like I was on the committee as a music person, so like my job was to and
You try to figure it out.
well my job was to be there and to do the music, but told not to do the music. that makes double, like, sort of, so I'm getting contradictory messages.
A guest or someone who's willing to. They talk too about like, well, if you do that, then it's tokenism and it's a one-off and it's
Yeah.
blah blah blah. Yeah, okay,
From that
I get that.
perspective,
It
from that
is for
perspective.
sure, for sure, it is tokenism. But if that's all you have right now to be as inclusive as you can possibly be, and that's the only thing that you're being told that is allowed to happen, then I think that's what we're at right now, and
where
that's what we have to go with.
And that's something our ancestors didn't have.
Right.
I mean,
It's not the best, but it's like you said, it's a step in the right direction. There's no solution that's gonna please everybody. Everybody's gonna say this isn't right from some
some
reason,
perspective.
from some perspective.
We can't
But if
begin
you-
to know someone's
Yeah.
history that's as, you know.
Yeah, you can't exactly. So
whether-
if
how
you
that feels.
yeah, and like basically what our at Oise what our solution was just how you present it, how you preface what you're about to do. And if you let the kids know, if you use the word tokenism, like from some perspectives, this may be seen as tokenism, but this is where we're at right now. We want you to have this experience. We found someone who would like to engage with you in this way. Then I think that's the best that we as educators can do at this point with what we're given, with the resources and with the ties to those communities that we have. That's where we're at.
So you've done it. You've touched on it. One is you said experience, giving them an experience. Community music we use are relationships. In the First Nations things, they talk about all the relations, like the people they belong to, but also the land they belong to, right? And also the belief systems they belong to. A lot of them are Christians, and some even say it, right? Well, I'm this church, and blah blah blah. It's always who you're related to, and so you use your relationships as a teacher. Hey Lee, it's good to see you. Yeah. Use your relationships as a teacher, Jennifer, to move Yeah.
And we had the welcome song given to us
Yes.
last week, and Maria asked if we should clap. Was it you who asked? And she goes, you only clap if you're gonna clap every time I walk through the door.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And Charlotte just says things sometimes.
Yeah,
It's
but I
like-
got it, right? It's
Yeah.
who I am. Are you clapping for me? Are you clapping for who I am?
Yeah.
So, I mean, all that to say,
Well, and it's ours to, like, to clap is not just, but it's, it's feedback, it makes a connection too. I didn't mean it like that's a performance and we're applauding a performance,
Right,
but
right.
it's, I have no other way of
we clap.
acknowledging it. That's my tradition of
But in
acknowledging.
your,
Exactly. No, that's
in
our
your,
tradition.
And
in
that
your
was a good
effort
thing to
in,
bring
in
up.
seeking to understand
Yeah.
what's appropriate or not, that is demonstrating respect,
Mhm. Well, it was-
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
but they're suggesting that, you know, and also I think we clap out of nervousness sometimes, that awkward silence after something's been
Yeah.
performed.
That's
We go,
long enough.
what do I do now? I go, so we clap, that kind of neutralizes everything. So there's another more profound way to respond to those kinds of offerings.
It's great. I thought your reactions and the reactions on the vlog have been fantastic. So those of you who haven't added in yet, read those and add it. 'Cause
Who's
they're
on
awesome.
the screen?
This is
You?
Jess.
No, you
Jess
still
is-
haven't sent me the link.
I know I haven't sent it to you, but Jess will be there. Jess will be there. Yeah, it's being recorded, right?
Oh,
I can't get the link to it. Let's sing, and then let's present, and then I can dive into
Yeah.
getting Jessica online for link. Okay. So you want to turn half a light down and close some computers or something, and you don't have to close them, but
Well, the lights are half off, you want dark?
close the door maybe. Yeah. Because they don't want to hear us improvising.
Too dark?
There are many different types of improvising, but for us tonight, just this free is good. Oh, look, this is so spooky. It's like Halloween.
Should we put the microphone in the?
In the center.
Okay.
Nice, do that. Go, go, gadget.
You want me to do that underneath you guys?
Do that.
Okay, then you, someone else. lead. Well, that felt good. Thank you, you guys. Thanks for making that part of the class still, so it's not just us being clinical and critical. Wonderful. All right, toss out some lights, and who's ever up first? Whoever wishes to go up first.
I'll go.
To go, great. I'll give you a screen if you need it, and I'll get Jessica.
Maybe change Janet.
And if you need the, oh, you just got, that's great. Jennifer, totally with you on that experience.
because mine
Like we've all been there. Frustrating. And Alex, there's a long discussion about
I know.
and I wrote somebody about your situation, as I talked about it, and the people in your situation, like, you have the white guilt, and you're middle it, you're like I mean, it's awful, like you're the white privileged female, but the Dalai Lama says that Western, white, middle class females who are really liberally minded and want to save the world, but he says they're gonna save the world. Because there's so many of them, it's almost like it's a huge movement of people. It's a huge movement of people.
In a way, that's a kind of a strength, right?
It's a huge strength.
Well, we're in a place of power in our
Well, no, but
society,
the
and we
guilt.
can use that.
But the white
Oh.
guilt is a position of strength because you then, if
Find a way to
you,
get
you are in conflict, internal conflict,
Yeah.
you gotta resolve that.
The older you don't care.
With, like, in relationship to all that's come before, right?
Yeah.
So you are actually the living representative
Yeah.
of all the other so your guilt, whatever,
You
you
want
want
Jessica
to
on?
help is actually
I will
rooted
do
in
that.
that question.
Well, you know what, I've got the link.
It's just such a big burden to
Can you
bear.
see it? Let's
Yeah,
go type it in
but
somewhere.
But that's the strength, right? That's the strength of it. It's
Thank you, Heather.
You know what? I like it.
permission to go deep, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's so
That's my color
heavy,
code for the water.
you're not gonna carry that.
The dark green is for the whole tinted.
You do it right.
Release it so that you can move on and actually function and do stuff.
Yeah.
It's you two, right?
Yeah.
You two are just right
I
on.
really do think that's it's a call.
Yeah.
It is a call, and I think
Yeah.
that's what I saw her say. I
Yeah.
think she said, "Oh, okay, that's where you're going."
Yeah.
And it's so cool.
Yeah.
It's like it was in a way in our culture it would be like a blessing.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess it just didn't feel like that to me. I think I was just feeling like
I know the whole dance, I could go on for
there
days.
was just so much in my way, and that was really
God, what a
frustrating.
stitch, what a stitch, where's that
When
little
you
thing?
wanted that bad,
Heather has it.
and there's so
Heather-
many things.
Heather's got it?
that
Okay.
it's
I have
like,
what's over here.
you just want to give up.
We'll just face it
and
towards you, Heather, okay?
You know, it's important that you
Don't
don't.
own it.
Exactly.
Own where you are.
You have to do a weird.
Do some
But
like
if
jazz
you have
stuff
it
to
on you,
warm
it's
it up.
over mic, so the mic's going through. It should, but it looks like it's off.
It's like a remote, a Wii.
Yeah, it's very. There it goes. Now to follow you. And I guess we can put it a little closer to you if you want. Should we put it closer to the presenter?
If you want.
I'm not hearing anything. I'm really tired, so I wasn't hearing anything correctly. It sounded like you mentioned beer or something. What about the beer? Yeah. Oh, it's a good idea. Okay, so this is Heather.
Nice to meet you.
And Heather, what are you covering and all that tonight?
I'm covering the life and death of classical music by Norman Lebrecht.
Emily and Lindsay, we're here now. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. And so this is the life and death of classical music by Norman Lebrecht.
Just before I get into it, this whole book was about the recording industry. So I kind of was pulling out the parts that I thought were relevant and then related it back to our studies. So this vibrates.
Well, it might be vibrating when it's unhooking.
That's
I
weird.
don't know it well enough yet.
Okay, well,
Me and the
alright.
robot don't know each other.
So, the life and death of classical music. So, I'm kind of doing it as a timeline of how the recording industry went. So before recording, this is really distracting.
Oh, let me move it back away from
Sorry.
you, because they should be able to see this, so you can move toward your
Okay.
thing and it'll fall. Yeah, just go ahead and present and we'll deal with
All right,
this.
so,
Play their piece, and if they did mess up, that really didn't matter because nobody was going to be listening to it 2 days down the road. It was in the present, and nobody really cared if there were mistakes. But with the new invention of recording, they now thought that they could benefit from this, and recording started to emphasize perfection. So performers had to overcome a fear of error in their performances while they were being recorded. Because it was permanent and people would be listening to it forever and ever and ever, amen, like us listening to something that was recorded back in the 1800s or whatever, each performer wanted their recording to be perfect, and they almost had a sense of competition between other performers to achieve that perfect performance. And with recording, the artist could earn fees. So if they did have a perfect recording that was sold multiple times, they would get that money for each of the recordings sold. So recording went against the very nature of performance. It made a distance between the performer and the audience because the performer was no longer doing this for the audience's enjoyment. Rather, they were doing it for themselves and trying to achieve perfection. And so it was said to be a dehumanization of the art form. So as I said before, recording was a luxury. Performances were all done in one place, and a whole song cycle could be put onto one of the whole recordings, which never was a thing before. Performers didn't know that.
is this not working?
No, it's working fine.
Other different genres began to start doing the recording as well. And so the change of performance to becoming on the recording. Recording was now a superior art form, and people were starting to come away from the performance. So Glenn Gould renounced his performance career because he wanted just to focus on the recording. And at this point, the record companies were making tons of money. And I said this in my video, but Joseph Lockwood, who worked for Capitol Records, and he's the one that primarily began to support pop music, said it was not to discourage classical musicians from recording, but it wasn't to let them think that they owned the whole bloody place. Yeah. But then something changed, and the big thing that changed recording was technology. Everybody was able to have music and different songs or videos even right at their fingertips. And so now it's almost as if recording and classical recording just lies in the hands of the diehards. So those who really want to have the hard piece of CD or records or whatever. So to summarize, the demise of the recording was corporatization. There were so many corporations getting in on the recordings that it was almost way too competitive between all of them. And overproduction. So as I was talking with Kira before, there were songs and pieces being recorded multiple times, but they were all sounding the same.
and indestructibility of the CDs and records, they weren't as breakable, and so less people were starting to buy them. And as I said, with the internet and technology,
or a short regrowth for the onslaught of Baroque music, right? They started recording Baroque music, historical performance practice, and suddenly there were all these recordings again. But who recorded all of the Bach cantatas? Who were they? There was only 2 conductors who did it, right? One working for Teldec, the other working for Hensler, right? You guys know this stuff?
No.
This is all music history you need to know, right? So Hensler is Helmut Rilling, who in Canada trained with Helmut Rilling, the great Bach conductor. Howard Dick. Yeah, well, yeah.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, it's Howard's principal. That's how Howard and I knew each other. We had the same teacher. Yeah. So, yeah, and me. So, and who's the other guy? Harnoncourt, who working for Teldec. And they had this war going on, and who has the best interpretation, and they, Christoph Wolff was working for them, all these great musicologists. And that's where the whole thing about authenticity, see we're dealing with this stuff, this historical authenticity. And so we got this version of you do it Baroque music this way because it's authentic. And we have the thing called performance practice. Now from what you know, and you've had ethics of authenticity of all these things, I mean, we know that it's impossible to know what that music sounded like.
Yeah.
We just know. It's like, nah, I can't really claim authenticity. And we got, remember texts? We're always looking for an text.
Yeah.
We thought, oh, there was an original manuscript somewhere. Is there an text of Handel's Messiah? No, because he's always rewriting it, right? And so who wrote the text to Handel's Messiah? Come on, come, musicians. This is what's emphasized in my day as a scholar.
Well, I know
Alfred
it's all
Mann.
the
Alfred
publishers.
Mann. Yeah. There's a musicologist at Eastman. Dr. Mann, genius with Handel and Bach. Yeah. But that's where it was, right? That was that's what we called authenticity, the way they did it. Right? Yeah. And so there's still, that authenticity is still out there, but that's not what we're talking about in this class anymore. So, who is the biggest selling classical musician now? Or he quotes somebody in there. He does that, all those charts. It's Cecilia Bartoli, right? And what she sell, you're the vocalist, what are they? She's, you don't know?
I'm an Adele lover. I did opera because I
She does like the classical 26 Italian arias.
Yeah,
like,
and it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's kind of perfect, right?
Yeah.
It's perfect. But she sold. What does he say?
Who are you? What was the name?
Bartoli.
Cecilia?
Yeah,
Bartoli?
Yeah.
137. See, I tried to just skip over all that detail.
So she only makes. I mean, it's a lot to us. It's several $1 million.
3.5.
That she said. That's
no.
all.
That's
3.5.
Vanessa May. Hold on.
It's crazy.
And then the first Beatles album's off the charts compared to that. So like the highest selling classical musician is nothing compared to rock music and all that now.
She's the highest selling.
She was when you wrote the book.
Karajan is the top
Karajan,
selling.
Karajan.
She's
Karajan.
modern, I guess.
200 million.
200 million, and those are all those Beethoven symphony sets,
Most
right?
When he
recognized
connects with his
artist in the world
eyebrows.
right now.
Yeah. He was an expert skier too. He was an amazing guy.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, highest ranking amateur skier in Austria.
No, I don't know.
Okay,
The
that's
conductors.
yeah, that's big. That's big. That's
Crazy
big.
well.
But did
Known
the
for is that
Beatles
she, like,
and
she
this,
performed all
the
over
Beatles
the
and
world.
Sgt.
Super well
Pepper
recognized.
Lonely Hearts Club or whatever?
He's got it all in there, yeah.
It says the Beatles affected modern times more than any politician.
Hang on, Carissa. Hang on a second. We need to listen to this.
The Beatles affected modern times more than any politician, scientist, writer, or filmmaker. If classical recording as a cultural artifact achieved a similar impact over the century, it can safely be described as a world-changing medium, life-enhancing, and incontrovertibly worthwhile.
Okay, so what he's saying is the impact is Western classical music, does it have, we think it's this big deal, our schools teach it, big cultural impact, but what about this pop music? And he's saying, right? He's saying that it's huge, huge culturally. But remember, he's a cultural insider. He sure
knew everything.
He's the insider guy. So his perspective is, here's all the people I know, and this guy's a jerk, and this guy, yeah. But we got to know that perspective, right? It's not a scholarly perspective. He's not sitting on the outside taking notes. He's calling up people saying, what did that guy say? You remember? It's all gossip.
There were so many quotes, yeah.
And you know he's calling them and writing it down on his typewriter. You know he's doing that.
See, I just took your advice where you said, don't even worry about that crap. Just
There's so much crap in the book. It's hard to
It's a
swallow.
crappy book.
Yeah. But what do we?
Not gonna lie.
What do we learn from that? From this industry book? I mean, this is about making money. So the perfectionism in music And remember that it's when classical music, when the recording industry was really recording a lot of music, right? A lot of Beethoven symphonies, a lot of piano stuff. That's when these music schools grew. That's when, we suddenly had all these music conservatories everywhere. And that every university had to get a music school. And what do we train on? Violin, viola, cello, bass, and classical singing. It's because there was a huge industry. It was job training. And there was orchestras then in every town, and there were professional orchestras everywhere. That's not our world now? No, but we never stopped.
No, oh my
The
gosh.
schools kept going. It's like, why do I have to learn to sing this classical technique? Because it is the only good way to sing. Why? It is the only healthy way. They fed us a lot of lines. And so what this tracks is what he's good for is follow the money. Follow the money and see where it all came from. Why are we teaching music the way we teach it? Because it's superior? He's saying, is it superior? And then that music talent and performance book, who's presenting that? Who's presenting the conservatory book? Are you doing that? Yeah.
I just did a
Music.
blog, but I don't,
Oh, but anyway,
I
so
think
in
I'm
that,
presenting it in 2 weeks.
yeah, that book is where an anthropologist actually goes into the music conservatory and
It was so
reports on it as a culture. And all this stuff gets reflected, why we don't let it go. It's a really part of I think the unit has to be recharged. But it does, what else? I mean, what else can a study like this show us? It's not a scholarly book. It's a gossip book, but it's an industry insider book.
I
Yeah,
think
go
it's
on.
really interesting what you're saying about like why haven't our institutions of studying music changed? Like
There's something about it that
yeah, like it's true, like what you're saying, follow the money, like every other institution in a university is developing with the times.
with its industry.
With its
or
industry,
with
what
or
is gonna get
politics.
their students jobs on the other side. Of course it's a university, it's intellectual growth and yada yada, no, but like you're looking for a job in the field eventually, and like this was always my problem at Laurier I was like, how am I, if I'm just being trained as just a classical singer, how is this preparing me to go out into the world as only a classical singer? Like it always bothered me so much, and yeah.
What was the response to you though? What did your teachers say to you? And I'm not saying they're wrong, because we've all had to believe the narratives and come up with these perspectives to try and justify our existence in the world. Because we have to go home every day, right, to our kids and say, Mommy, what do you do? I teach people to opera sing. But Mommy, you can't, why? I like Adele, it's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've just thought of the Adele thing too, so. Have you seen that car karaoke?
Oh,
So, oh my God! He does this with Adele, and it's
Oh, yes.
fantastic.
Life-changing.
God,
It is.
I was like, I don't know,
Changed
Michelle
my
Obama
perspective
the
of
other
her.
day. It was so
I
good.
believe it.
It's not the being her, but the best friend.
called me
Yes.
up on stage,
Oh, it's so good.
asked me to sing Adele, and I was like, oh, just Adele? No problem.
So
But I
fun.
did.
Yeah.
So,
But
but,
I killed it.
oh, so great. But think about why, and Carissa, you're in this boat too, right, with the classical
Oh yeah,
training?
big time.
So
And-
think about why your teachers told you what they did. I'm not saying your teachers are wrong, but let's just think about why they would tell you what they did.
Well,
Sorry, go
sorry,
on.
I was gonna say, I have an interesting story behind this a little bit, just from my own experiences. So when I was looking at going into music school, I understood that classical was kind of my only option, even though I came from a band that sung primarily Southern gospel and R&B.
Yeah.
And when I started going into lessons, I was told that I had to start changing the voice. Now, I don't want to sound braggy, but at the same time, I had a friend that ended up having an opportunity to go down and work in LA with one of the production studios down there with Timberland. And it was kind of like, okay, I have an in, I have an opportunity, where do I go? And I remember thinking, okay, so I can take that opportunity, go south, see where it goes, try and milk it for all it's worth, or I can go to school, I can study the classical, I can get the education, I can do the training and blah, 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 blah. Because up to that point, I had a very, very little local training. All of it was mostly just experience. And I remember thinking, no, I think I want to do the degree. And I remember getting the classical training. And at the end of it all, I have to say, as much as there is value and there are ways to learn in other types of art forms and being fantastic singers, because I work with lots of them, what I can do now, taking it back to Southern gospel and R&B singing, I could never have done before I started.
So you got good technique training.
100%. And I'm grateful for that. I'm very grateful for that because I don't think I would have been able to afford it in any other life circumstance.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for that. And now it's actually taken my ability and made it this because I also sing jazz and I've also sung country and I also sing my best friend down the aisle to an opera song and then I also sing, you know, I have fun with because I have the ability. But I will say the one thing that's been the hardest after graduating was I no longer had a sense of self in my voice. So if someone said to me, sing something, like sing me something,
You'd be like,
I wouldn't know what to sing you that would represent me anymore because my voice, no, I wouldn't know. Because some people sing, like they automatically go to one style because that's them. It took me a long time to find that. It took me 3 years to find that.
because you were trained as an instrument. You were trained like an instrument.
Because I was trained to sound one way that didn't feel like me, but I appreciated it for all it was worth. And then it opened it up to be so big that I could have anything.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, now what? What's me? I don't know.
That's a great.
That's a good way to put it.
I
Thank you.
can relate to that for sure. Going to Humber too, and just being like, but at Humber, they tell you like if you want to live on rice and beans, whatever, this is the lifestyle for you. So same thing with you. I was like, okay, how can I like make myself available as a singer? What I like to do, type of thing. Yeah. And no bueno, like still trying to figure out what to what to teach people too, because I'm coming from all these different perspectives, and I'm like, how do I package that and teach other people that? They're kind of getting confused themselves, and then it's like it's this thing. I don't know.
So
Alex,
I
good,
went
Aaron.
to Western for voice, and I had the same end result, but I don't think I'm as. I mean, I never had any formal training before I went into university. I just done musical theater in high school, and I loved it, and that's what made me fall in love with it. And by the end, I started out and I was like, oh, opera's so cool. And then by the end of it, I'm just like, I can't memorize another piece. I had 14 pieces on my journal.
Yeah.
What? And 14 because we had to film 30 minutes.
Like 5, too much.
We had to film 30 minutes, and it was just like, and I was in music education. I wasn't even in performance.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just
Western man.
To put yourself into 14 pieces and be able to just whip it.
Right.
It wasn't music anymore. It was
Different
robot.
languages.
Yeah,
different whatever.
you were filling out a form almost.
And it
Right.
was just technique. It was blah blah blah. It was I could get that sound great. That's all you need. And I was like, yeah, I have talent, but I don't like it anymore.
So,
I can't-
like what
yeah.
Carissa was saying, is you lost view of yourself.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's different because now I go back to musical theater and I've lost my belt. My range has dropped by a fifth, and part of that's just like age and whatever, but it doesn't feel the same.
But you're trained to feel these.
Which is similar to musical theater, but it's a lot less lifelike, and it's kind of, you have all these other things that you have to think about while you're trying to be your character, like technique and breathing and posture and blah 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 blah, where you can't actually be yourself. You can't put yourself into your character like they want you to, because all you're doing is creating a nice aesthetic, and
You're singing pretty.
you're singing
You're singing pretty.
and you're singing correctly.
Correct and pretty.
And that's great. That's fantastic for your jury and whatever, but now I want to sing pop songs, and I want
Self-expression.
I want to
blah,
express
blah, blah.
myself with the voice that I now have, but I can't because all it sounds like is opera.
That's such an emotional thing.
Wow.
Listening to you, and it's
Wow.
resonating.
Yeah.
And it's
Quite a statement.
Like, it's a big reason why, like, all my life I was like, yeah, I'm going to study music in post-secondary. That's what I'm going to do. And then I got to this point where I again, like you,
Do you want to
it's
set up?
like, oh,
So you can do this for me.
singing is so much part of my identity.
Yeah.
But I don't feel identity within that because I'm just singing songs that I'm told to sing.
Yeah.
So that I can get a grade, so that I can go to study it again. actually remember the moment that I sang a gospel song for the first time when I was a trained soprano.
Yeah.
And just being like, whoa, like
Yeah.
this is emotional and wrong.
Yeah,
So
and
wrong.
that's why I love Jen Moyer is the fact that does anyone know Jen Moyer?
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I love Jen Moyer is that she kind of bases herself a little bit on proper technique and blah 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 because you know she teaches at Western, so she kind of has to. But she also has this really important idea that the body is a system of intention.
Embodying the
Yeah.
performance,
You're
and
more
instead of
embodied in the
instead of
performance.
disembodied performance, which
But
is what recording did to us.
at the same time, that's a lot more transferable to than bel canto is. So, you know, it's different. And I think that's why I enjoyed studying with Jen Moyer more in her choirs than I did in studio lessons is because I was actually able to express myself through choir music, even though it was given to me, the text was given to me, everything was given to me, but we were actually more able to make it a personal experience than with bel
So it'll
canto.
follow you until it fails. Next time I'll fix it. But it's line of sight. So.
Mary's song. Okay, look up. So she has a series of DVDs, and you'll laugh at the name, but it's called Bel Canto Canvelto. And it's the best, and I'm obsessed with it, and I think you will be too.
Well,
It's teaching belting from
But
a
let's
classical
try to
standpoint.
I mean, this is gonna be a big talk because you're a vocalist. This is a huge talk.
I'm like Lindsay, I decided not to because I knew it would just break what I loved.
So we should continue that after the break, but I'd like to get Carissa's book in before the break. But will you hold on to it so after the break we can talk some of this through because this is super important.
And I'll talk about, I actually had an experience this year with the recording industry and got an opportunity to work in a recording studio with people who work in the industry now, and it's very fascinating where the money is now.
Where's it now?
Songwriting. Yeah.
She's like, I don't know where it is.
No. It's in songwriting, not being the performer anymore. Being the recording artist is nothing. Being the songwriter is everything. So if you're both, you got it made.
Well, and we have those for movies and stuff. It's not even the composer anymore. It's a sound designer.
Yeah.
Like you're the person who plugs things in.
Yep. Yeah. So, one of the crazy things that the idea that this is from Scotland, and there are probably about a bajillion versions of shortbread made, but maybe, just maybe, there's something to do with the country that is involved with this cookie. And one of the best lines I read from the book, called Ethnicity Inc., was, "Scotland the brave has become Scotland the brand." And that's where this book goes. So what we look at is the idea, first thing I want to define is a term called commodification. So actually in last week's class, we looked at the idea of something becoming a commodity, but commodification is a noun. It goes to understand that, can we actually truly sell something that shouldn't be sold? So for example, the ideas of example, you can't actually commodify art. Art for true art's sake, can it really be sold? So a lot of the discussions that we had with Joyce's presentation last week, is it the idea that we can actually sell what's genuinely not meant to be sold? This book looks at the ideas of ethnicity. So one of the big shifts that the book covers right at the beginning, and some of the most fascinating quotes from the book, were around what happened and how did this shift change in the marketplace. Big thing is, huge surplus in labor. So many people working. How do we brand out? Where do we sell now? Well, selling identity and culture. And the first example that it looks at is a picture I posted here, looking at the Zulu tribes in South Africa. What they started to do was create cultural experiences for tourists or resorts. It was the idea that they could sell their culture to tourists to help perpetuate it and be favorable in the market. They realized they had a niche market to sell an experience around their country and culture. Now, what's interesting is what they talked about is the idea of, can identity that is being sold really be identity? Is it being reinvested back into the identity, or is what's being perpetuated only what sells? And one of the quotes Now, what they realized is that they could sell this the next drug supplement in a multi-billion-dollar industry. Now, to sell it as authentically as possible, they said that it was extracted and used by the Bushmen, but when they started to go back and actually look into the selling markets for this drug or this supplement, they realized that the tribe that they were talking about hadn't existed for 40 to 50 years. So what they were selling was creating a culture around something that didn't even exist, again, to sell the authenticity of it. Enterprising politics. So, for example, Russia and China actually create politics around the idea of being a business. They run their politics like business. They're well known for it. And then from there, politics are the business for the industry. So think about England and the British Empire. The monarchy, many would argue, is not necessary, but it is the highest source of attraction for tourists within their country and generates the most amount of revenue. Are they necessary? Probably not. But they're an iconic head not only for that country, but globally. They are one of the most massive tourist factors, as more and more countries no longer have monarchies in place. And England is one of the only ones that has capitalized it on the same way as any other country that does have a monarchy. Now, Here's where we pull this into community music, and here's where my rant starts. Because I genuinely read this book, and my first reaction was, okay, and we were laughing about this earlier, I know that this is English, but a lot of the words in here are really big, and I don't know what they mean. But, so yesterday after trying to pull all this together, I called my boyfriend, and I said, okay, here's what I think. You tell me what you think. We had this amazing discussion for 25 minutes while I yelled on my phone in the middle of a restaurant in Mississauga. And the big question I asked myself was, can ethnicity truly sell authenticity? That was my big question to myself. Because the first point that I want to make is think about the food industry. You tell me a pasta company that hasn't used an Italian-based commercial to sell its product. Starting to actually see Canadian culture infiltrate actually over the last 30 years seeing a shift in our own identity and culture, which is something kind of new for us. We're known as the country with the nicest people. We're known as sorry. We're known for our bacon. We're known for our poutine. We're known for our funny, nice culture. We're known for our maple syrup. And you'll get the nice, it's real Canadian maple syrup when it's sold in little maple leaf. That kind of makes me proud. I'm finally part of a country that's developing its own cultural identity, not locally, but as a part of a global market. And the third thing I talked about was kind of what was talked last week, is the idea, can we truly commodify music? If we're making it for authenticity's sake, as community musicians, if we're the people in these types of circles, are we making it because we want it to sound good? Are we making it to sell it? Or are we actually making music for music's sake? And this is where I was actually going to tie in the idea of the recording industry, that opportunity that I had. I've had opportunities to write music with friends, and it was genuinely just the idea, let's jam out, let's see what we can come up with. And it really was music for music's sake. Feelings were shared. It was a safe space to do it. But in the music industry, it's about the overpowering and the just get it out, get it out. It's the over-generating of music. It doesn't matter, just get it all out, because you never know what could sell. So it's a very interesting experience of the idea around commodifying something that, can you truly say you make music just to sell, or is it something that shouldn't be sold? I don't know. So those are kind of my three big.
It's like when the Beatles said that, what should we do now? What should we write now? Well, let's write a swimming pool, because it became money, right? This is brilliant. Yay!
Dan, you're next, and then,
Oh, not me.
who is it?
I present today.
Okay, great, so just, we'll make sure we have time for both of you. Jess, we're gonna take a break,